So, for the New York circuit, this is the Gotham Stakes, and it is their second serious Derby prep prior to the Wood Memorial and following the Withers. It's the 10th race on the Saturday card, and it's running a one-turn mile, which is always kind of weird that they run the Withers at a mile and an eighth, and then they cut back to a mile here. But that's what we have. That's what we have. And of course, it's for 3-year-olds only. We look at this field. And the one thing right off the bat is to note is that Brad Cox has 4 entrants, and I believe Todd Pletcher has 3. So and Christophe Clement has 2. So we got some high-powered trainers throwing in what I would consider to be, in all candor, most of them are their JV players, with the exception of Clement. I think his barn's not quite as stocked with 3-year-olds for the Derby anyway, but. So you have to believe that maybe Cox will have a little bit of control over this race, tactically, to a degree. But it's a pretty well-balanced field. I think it's a very good betting race, as it is hard to it's pretty well-balanced, and it is hard to separate and come up with a stone winner. But we'll take a look at it. We'll go through them one at a time as we do. And we'll start with Con 8. And if you consider that Jerome was an ideal race for him at the same one turn, and he sputtered despite pretty soft fractions, I'm not going to have any part of Con 8 here. I think there are others that are suited a lot better. El Grande, his best efforts have been versus state breds, and the main thing is he does have gait issues. And certainly for a horse who wants to be on the front end, that spells doom if he does have problems getting out of the gate. So it's not a lock that he's going to get to the lead, because he's got to break well first. This one is kind of like Arctic Arrogance last year for Linda Rice, same trainer. You know, this one's a hard knocker. He does fight well, but never seems to have enough in the stretch. A one-turn mile is certainly preferable for this one, who does kind of have distance issues. But I also think that there are others who have a little bit more upside that are more appealing. So El Grande, I think, can finish in the money because he normally does. But we do have to consider that he may have trouble getting out of the gate, and there are others with more upside. So he's more of a use underneath for me. Maximus Meridius. The one thing I really like about this horse is that the late fraction is improving with each start, and he's not losing anything with his early fractions, and that signals a horse who is getting better. Hasn't gone around, this will be a step up to be sure, but I liked what I saw from this horse last time. And Butch Reed, he won with Uncle Heavy, and he's awful dangerous shipping these Pennsylvania breds. And he doesn't bring them unless he thinks they can run. And I think you're getting an excellent price at 20-1. The post is in particularly favorable, considering this horse will want to be up near the lead in a 13-horse field. I think that's very important. Going to be able to save some ground while being up near the front end. So Maximus Meridius, I think, offers excellent value, and one I think you have to use for sure. Facenda, just not good enough. That's it. Pass. Excuse me. Deposition. I had a decent Withers first time around 2 turns, but this horse should want that, and is kind of a grinder. I don't think the cut back to 1 turn is necessarily good for this horse. I think the longer the better, and I just can't see this setting up very well for this horse, so I'll pass. Air Cav doesn't look like Brad Cox has a lot of confidence in this one, keeping him in New York. And I really don't see any signs of progression that get me excited about him. Even at 30-1, I don't see him move forward likely, so I'll pass on Air Cav. Just a Touch has received a little bit of publicity, or a little bit of attention. Had a solid maiden score at the fairgrounds, but really didn't beat much. And we remember Brad Cox from last year. As soon as he moved Hit Show to New York, we kind of got the feeling that was a horse who needed a little work and needed some softer competition from which to grow. And so when you see a horse like Just a Touch, who had a pretty good maiden win, all of a sudden is in New York instead of staying in Louisiana, you do have to wonder why. I'm not thrilled about taking a horse at 5-2 in the 10 hole who likes to run up near the lead, coming off a maiden win where he didn't really beat very much. So to me, Just a Touch is a toss. Slider boy, if this horse had a better post, I'd be all over this horse to win this race. Has great back class, shown plenty of lick, just would like a better post. He's coming into this race in great form. The last two works in the tab were super, and you don't see back-to-back works where you're single digits out of 100 2 times in a row. And so that to me is a really good sign that this horse is ready to fire. Had a solid third in the San Vicente, and he kept on running, which I always like to see, even though he had been headed by Muth. And he was battling all the way down the stretch. So I think this horse has some grit, and with some decent back class, albeit in California, I understand, reservations there. But this isn't the classiest of groups, and I think he can hustle to the front. One turn is right up this one's alley, and I think you have to like him. At 8-1, I think he offers good value as well. And he, under the right circumstances, he could take them all the way. So I like Slider. Bergen is another one of Brad Cox's, and I think he has the best shot of any of them. He should want the added ground being by Liam's map, and I like the fact that his late fraction continues to improve. And as I mentioned with Maximus Meridius, that's a really potent sign that a horse is getting better because he's running against himself, not running against others. You've heard me use that expression before, but I think it shows that this horse is just, he's not necessarily competing. He's working towards getting himself better. And that's, I think, is extremely positive. He should have a good setup. I think there's enough early pace in there for him to come off to right behind it and come off at 8 holes should be a good place for him to be. And at 9-2, as it is with this entire field, you're getting square prices with all of them. If we can stay around there, we should be very happy. I think Bergen, to me, looks like the one to beat. Eliminate is already has 2 races at 9 panels, so the distance we're not going to worry about. But note, he wasn't able to handle Speedrunner or Society Man 2 back, and they both washed out in the Withers. And when you consider he didn't beat much for the maiden score, maybe this is one to wait on. And he's probably going to be a little bit of an underlay, and I don't really want any part of him, so I'm going to toss Eliminate. Late line, I don't really like either. He had every chance in the Withers, and he couldn't close the deal. Albeit he was closing against a soft pace, so he had a little bit of excuse. But it's troubling that his class level stayed the same despite the race class bump. And that's a sign that a horse may not be improving. He may be plateauing. And again, this is another one, Cox trainee in New York. And I think that says a lot about this horse. And he was a terrible favorite in the Withers. And you won't get that price as short this time. I hope not anyway. But even at 8-1, I don't really like him. I think underneath, he could certainly be there. But if you tossed him, I wouldn't talk you out of it. I just not a big fan of this horse at all. Capital Idea, he didn't beat much in the maiden last time, but it was the way he did it that was impressive to me. I really liked the way he drew off from the field. He rated kindly, waited till it was time to go, and then pushed a button, and he was gone. Had a really smooth action, I thought. From my layman's eyes, he looked awful good to me. Obviously, the 13 hole is a big problem here. He's going to have to run like a 1 1/8 or 1 3/16 in this race. But I think he's up to it. If he can work out a trip, you're going to get a nice price at 12-1. And I think this horse has some upside. So Capital Idea, probably more for underneath, but I think he's worth a look. Deterministic is hard to know what to do with, to be honest. He's coming, he hasn't run since July at Saratoga, and we do know Christophe Clement is great with second-time starters. But after this long a layoff, I don't think he's quite as potent. I don't think anybody can be. Regardless, the horse is training well. He's got plenty of works, a lot of 5 furlong works for stamina. Always love to see that. In his maiden effort, he was able to beat Eliminate, and who really had no excuses in what was a fairly small field. The thing that was impressive was he blew the break completely, deterministic, I'm saying. But he rallied smartly, went 5 wide. He was a little green in the stretch. There was some bumping. But he displayed a really big stride to tell you that more ground is exactly what this horse wants. So he may be a little more suited for 2 turns. But I think that this horse shows me enough that coming off the bench, despite being this long, if he's grown into himself a little bit more, which he likely has in this time, I think deterministic, if he can get some pace to run to, or he's a little more forwardly placed, which is entirely possible as well. I think he's worth a look at 9-2 as well. We take a look at our wagering strategy. This is a kind of a hard race to narrow down to 1, that's for sure. But I think you are getting great prices on the horses that we want to use here. But let's take the one with the best price, and that's Maximus Meridius for Butch Reed. Again, shipping. He's dynamite wherever he goes, and at 20-1, I think that offers excellent value for a horse who'll be up near the pace, who has showing signs of progressing. So we'll go win, play, show with the 2. Then we're going to. I think Bergen to me looks like the one to beat. So we're going to key box 8 with 2, 3, 12, and 13. We should get value out of that if we can get Bergen home. And then for the trifecta, we'll do the same thing, 8 on top with 2, 3, 12, and 13. I'm looking for horses, to me, that show upside. That's what I'm focusing on. I think that's what you have to for this race. It's not the quagmire of sprinters stretching out that it was last year. I think we've got a lot of horses with legitimate distance pedigree, and I think this is a very interesting race. It's a great betting race for sure, and there's really, in a lot of cases, there's a lot of different ways to go here, but we're going to go with Bergen. He looks to me like the one who's saltiest and has the best chance to win from a race shape perspective.